Genesis 34 is where we are today, and I got to talk fast because I got 6 pages of notes today, and that's not a good thing. And so I'm going to talk fast, and hopefully, because I have a speech impediment, I've stuttered ever since I was a little kid, and sometimes my brain is moving faster than my tongue, and when that happens, I stutter. And so hopefully, if that happens today, you guys will grant me some grace. But I'm coming in hot today because a world where physical and sexual violence against women and girls is normalized and otherized and sanitized is a world devoid of the glory of God. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women globally will experience physical and sexual violence, primarily perpetuated by an intimate partner. And today we have the unfortunate narrative before us where Jacob's only daughter, he's got these 11 sons, and this one daughter, he's got 12 kids because this 12th son, Benjamin, hadn't been born yet. And so he's still got 12 kids, but only 11 sons. His daughter is sexually assaulted in today's text. That's what today's text is all about. And so I'm sensitive because I live with 4 women, my wife and my 3 girls. And so I am an advocate for creating a world where physical and sexual violence against women is a thing of the past. There should be no space anywhere in our world where women and girls live in fear and are taken advantage of by really small men. Because any man who will physically and sexually violate a woman is not a man. And so if the Church of Jesus Christ has to be the people out leading the charge for creating a world where this type of violence that we're going to look at in Genesis 34 is a relic of the past and not a reality of our present and our future. Are you guys with me? And the reality is too many times our silence perpetuates the violence against our women and our girls. And the men have to lead the charge to protect our women and our girls. Oftentimes in these conversations, the women are standing up saying, enough is enough. We don't want to live in fear. Enough is enough. We don't want to have to worry about our safety. And the men are in the back somewhere cheering them on. We need to be at the front of the line, not in the back. And so, guys, we need to stand up and we need to speak up about this violence. The interesting thing in the story is that Jacob says nothing about his daughters, about this crime committed against his daughter. And I think Jacob is indicative of the men in our society who say nothing and do nothing. And our silence adds to the violence. You guys will remember before Father's Day in Genesis 33, verse 18, the text says that Jacob and his massive family and entourage safely and peacefully arrived in Shechem in the land of Canaan. However, their arrival will not be indicative of their experience in Canaan. They arrived peacefully, but their experience in Shechem is anything but peaceful. And so Genesis 34 is this horrible story of this crime committed against this young lady. And if I had to put a title on today's message, it would be this: the defilement of Dinah, the repulsive narrative of rape, revenge, rescue, and reproach. That's what I think Genesis 34 is about. And so there are 3 major sort of sections. I've kind of sectioned this chapter up in 3 particular sections. The first major movement is verses 1 through 4, where the crime against Dinah is in these first 4 verses. Let's look at the sacrilege and seizure of Dinah in verses 1 and 2. Notice how Moses introduces, reminds us about Dinah. Look at how he describes her. He says, Leah's daughter, Dinah, whom Leah bore with Jacob, went out to see some of the young women of the area. Stop right there. Dinah's naivety and her curiosity about her new surroundings, or either her boredom of the home front, leads her away from security to see how the local women spend their days. Remember, they had just moved to town, and if you've ever moved across town, if you've ever come into a new neighborhood, a new community, and you venture out of your apartment or your house to kind of see your neighbors and see what's happening in the streets, you see kids playing and adults talking and things going on, and Dinah ventures out from her home front into a community that they are newly settled in, and the unthinkable and the unfortunate happens to her. In verse 2, it says, when Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, who was the region's chieftain, when Shechem saw Dinah, he took her and he raped her. Dinah is unaware that she's being preyed upon by a young man of power, a prince of a local ruler named Hamor the Hivite. Shechem, the son whom the city is named after, perpetuates this sexual violence against Dinah in these 3 acts. Should remind us of Genesis chapter 3, when Eve saw that the tree was good for food. She took it and she ate it. Remember, she saw it, she took it, she ate it. Here, Shechem saw her, took her, and then he rapes her. The Hebrew text says that Shechem shekav with Dinah. In the PL form, he has oppressed her. He has laid with her, and that's a euphemism for sexual intercourse. But then the Hebrew text adds an expression to say that he enayed her, he oppressed her, he afflicted her, he violated her, and he did so in the PL verb stem, which is the most intense and aggressive way to say something in the Hebrew. There are some scholars who argue that Dinah was not raped in the passage. She was either coerced into a sexual intercourse with Shechem, or she consented. Now, why do they arrive at that conclusion? They argue that the normal word in the Hebrew for rape is not used here. And my pushback against these scholars would be that I would be persuaded by their rationale if it were not for the second word, ene. Here, when you talk about shekav, it doesn't connote the idea of rape. It means sexual intercourse, but coupled with this other expression connotes the idea that sexual violence is taking place against Dinah by a powerful, privileged, and perverse young man. And so what we have is a tragedy and a travesty committed against Jacob's daughter. Now, in the aftermath of this sexual violence committed against this young lady, Shechem develops this sweetheart obsession with Dinah in verses 3 through 4. Watch this. This is interesting, because often this is not usually the way sexual crimes committed don't lead to infatuation and love affairs. They may lead to an attraction, but not always. And so what Shechem develops here is interesting as it builds the story in verses 3 and 4. Shechem in verse 3 became infatuated with Jacob's daughter Dinah. He loved the young girl and spoke tenderly to her. Then in verse 4, get me this girl as a wife, he told his father. After sexually assaulting Dinah, he develops this sweetheart obsession, and he's infatuated with Dinah. This is the word davak, which we encountered in Genesis chapter 2 in verse 24, when Moses says, "For this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father and be joined to his wife." Joined is davak in the Hebrew. It means to cling, to be cemented, or to be glued to someone. Marriage is about leaving and cleaving, right? We've been told that a lot. And here, Shechem is glued and cemented to Dinah. He is infatuated with her. He's enamored. He can't leave her. He's like he won't leave her side. He's in love. He's stricken to the degree that he's cemented to this girl. This girl that he's taken advantage of. This girl that he's assaulted. He is in love with her, like Moses talked about a husband and wife should be. Interesting. The text also says that he loved Dinah. Now, it's hard to believe that Shechem truly loves Dinah after one illicit encounter. Sprung, as we used to say when I was a kid, infatuated is likely inaccurate description of Shechem's feelings. Also notice that he spoke tenderly to her. Our English version translates the phrase, he spoke to her heart. One commentator said this. Victor Hamilton says that this expression of speaking to someone's heart occurs 10 times in the Old Testament, always in less than ideal situations where there's a sense of guilt or repentance, where A attempts to persuade B of his feelings. I wonder what Shechem is speaking to Dinah's heart. I wonder how he's trying to comfort or console her. What is he saying to lift up her face and to lift up her spirits? Can you just wonder what is he saying after you commit a violent sexual crime against somebody? What do you say to them? I don't know, because I'm not a monster, but what do you say in order to get them to love you back? I mean, Moses doesn't tell us, but he's speaking to her heart. What is he saying? He's, you know what? I know I stole your virginity. I know that I didn't marry you before I had intercourse. I know I took you against your will, but just know that I'm going to make this all right. I really love you. You're special. You're beautiful. I'm cemented to you. I love you. You've got my whole heart. I'm going to make this right. We're going to have love for a lifetime. This is all going to work out. There will be ribbons in the sky for our love. What is he saying? Don't you wish we were a fly on the wall when Shechem is speaking to Dinah's heart? And I'm sure all Dinah cares about is getting home to her mother and her father and her brothers. I want you to notice also in verse 3 that Shechem transitions from infatuation to matrimony as he orders his father to arrange a marriage with Dinah's family and theirs. Might Shechem's words to Hamor give some insight into his mindset concerning the commodification and objectification of Dinah? He says to his father, take or seize this girl as my wife. He don't even say please. The rudeness. Shechem says, Dad, get me this girl to be my wife. My dad would have said, who are you talking to? But that shows the power dynamics in the family. Shechem has commodified and objectified Dinah. One author said this, to Hamer and to Shechem, Dinah is not a person with a value, but a product to be consumed. Now, Shechem has already taken and abducted Dinah during the rape, and now he invites his father to do the same in this marriage proposal. I want you to also pay attention, because this doesn't land well in the English text, but take note of how Dinah is defined in the passage. In verse 3, Moses, the author, refers to her as a Nahara. She is a maiden, a young woman of marriageable age. But in verse 4, Shechem refers to her as a Yaladah. She's a young girl. Shechem is dismissive and condescending in referring to this girl, that this young lady that he's raped. He doesn't refer to her as a young woman. He calls her a girl. That gives us some insight in what Shechem thinks about this girl. And it's interesting because he's speaking sweet nothings in her ear, and yet he's demeaning her to his father in private. That's why I don't believe Shechem really loves Dinah. I think he sprung on Dinah. I think he's infatuated with her, but I don't think he really loves her. Because when you love somebody, you don't demean them in private or in public. And Shechem does. Now, let's move to the meat of the story in this next movement as Dinah's brothers get revenge. This is the crux of this story. Look at the suggested synthesis in the one people group by Hamer and Shechem. Remember, Shechem said, Dad, I got to have this woman, I got to have this girl to be my wife. Now you go make it happen. And so look as the story unfolds. Verse 5 says this, that Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah, but since his sons were with his livestock in the field, he remained silent until they returned. Jacob is passive, emotionless in his response to Dinah's defilement, which is a juxtaposition to her brother's assertive and emotional response. Look at the brothers' response in verses 6 and 7 as they come home. Watch this. Meanwhile, Shechem's father Hamer came to speak with Jacob. Now he's doing what his son asked him to do in verse 4, and Hamer has come to Jacob's house to pitch this idea for this marriage between his son and Jacob's daughter. But before that happens, verse 7 says this, Jacob's sons returned from the field, and when they heard about the incident, they were deeply grieved and very angry, for Shechem had committed an outrage against Israel by raping Jacob's daughter, and such a thing should not be done. Jacob is passive and emotionless, but her brothers are engaged. Notice that Hamer comes to broker this marriage agreement as Dinah's brothers arrive home. They hear the tragic news and they have two responses. They're deeply grieved. They experience intense pain, hurt, or grief. Notice that Dinah's brothers share her pain. Jacob doesn't appear to. The second response that the brothers have is that they are very angry. They're enraged. They're beside themselves. They can't control how angry they are. They are frantic with this anger and this indignation for what has happened to their sister. Now, Moses' commentary on the brothers' motivation is instructive. Moses says, for Shechem had committed an outrage against Israel by raping Jacob's daughter. Such a thing should not be done. This word outrage in the Hebrew connotes this idea of a disgraceful, shameful act of wickedness. Now, let me give you a little bit of an aside here in this excursus on Jacob's passivity. I was wondering this week. What accounts for Jacob's passivity here? This is not consistent with the Jacob we've cheered and jeered and sneered throughout the Jacob Chronicles. Jacob is an aggressor. He's an initiator. He is a puncher. He swings at the first pitch. He's an innovator, an analyst, a strategist, a relentless wrestler, a negotiator in chief. So then why now distant, aloof, passive, emotionless, and silent? Can I propose a couple of theories? First, Jacob is likely in his 70s and 80s, and as he ages, could time be mellowing Jacob out? Certainly age may be a factor, but we'll see later in Genesis when tragedy strikes, Jacob is anything but emotionless. So age may be an insignificant factor, but I don't think it's significant enough to account for what we're witnessing here with Jacob. The second more compelling theory is that Jacob's uncharacteristic attitude and action here is unfortunately rooted in the generational dysfunction of family favoritism. Jacob simply doesn't love Leah and her children or Bilhah and Zilpah and their children as much as he does Rachel and Joseph. Dinah is the daughter of Leah. Therefore, the inferior love that Jacob has for the mother is shockingly transferred to the children. That's what I believe accounts for what we're seeing in this passive patriarch. Jacob just doesn't love the other kids as much as he loves Joseph. And I think that is what's going on here in the text. But Tuesday night is a great time for you guys to weigh in and tell us what you sense is going on in the passage. Let's transition now as Hamer makes the marriage pitch to Jacob and his sons. And remember, the brothers are mad as a wet hen. They're ready to fly off the handle and start moving some furniture around, as they say in the hood where I come from. And so watch this in verse 8. Hamer says to Jacob's sons, notice he's not speaking to Jacob. He's talking to Jacob's sons because they're visibly agitated. He knows who he should be dealing with here. Jacob is not saying anything, so he addresses his pitch to Dinah's brothers. And Hamer says this: can you imagine the responsibility of this dad to go to the family? Your son has just raped to ask for her hand in marriage. I wouldn't have done that job. I don't care what my son said, I'm not doing that. But he does it anyway because I think Shechem is the one controlling the father instead of the father controlling the son. That's just my own personal opinion, not my notes. But look at this, verse 8. My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife. Intermarry with us and give your daughters to us and take our daughters for yourselves. Live with us. The land is before you. Settle here. Move about and acquire property. Hamer's pitch is twofold. My son loves your daughter, number one. Number two, let's enter into an alliance between our people groups in verses 9 and 10. He says, let's marry. You live here with us and you guys can acquire land and you can trade and this will be great for everybody. This is a win-win for everyone. Hamer appeals to Dinah's family to accept his offer because of the financial advantages they stand to benefit from this alliance. And so here he's thinking that, hey, you know, the thing that moves men more than anything else is money, financial opportunities, and getting rich. So maybe they'll overlook my son's indiscretion if we can pad their pockets. Hamer doesn't understand who he's dealing with. But look at the brothers' response in verse 11 and 12. Notice Jacob hadn't said a word. Then Shechem says to Dinah's fathers and brothers, grant me this favor, and I will give you whatever you say. Now Shechem interjects here. Dad has spoken, but he moves to the forefront and says, grant me this favor. I gotta marry your daughter, and I'll give you whatever you say. Really? Verse 12, Shechem says to Jacob and to Dinah's brothers, give me, demand of me a high compensation and gift, and I'll give you whatever you ask of me, but just give me the girl as my wife. Can you believe Shechem? If I found favor or grace or goodwill in your eyes, I'll give you whatever you say. On what planet does he think the father and brothers of the girl he raped, and who he's shown no remorse or contrition whatsoever, that they should show him favor when he showed their daughter and their sister none? What is he thinking about? Shechem knows that he's wronged the family, and so his offer to pay any price is indicative of his realization of that fact. So how does Shechem really see Dinah? Because remember in verse 4, in private, he referred to her as a girl, as a Yalada, as a little girl. Now in public, before her father and her brothers, he refers to her with the more respectful term as a Nahara, kind of like Moses did. Why does he change how he refers to Dinah? Is what he believes in private what he thinks of Dinah, or what he's saying in public? He's referred to her by two separate terms, and sometimes, folks, we say stuff in private we'll never say in public. And so here, I think I have questions about Shechem's character and integrity beyond the rape. I think he's a liar and an opportunist here, and he's trying to pull a wool over Jacob and their brother's eyes. He don't know what he really called her when it was just him and his dad together. But we, the biblical audience, do, and we're holding him accountable. So look at the scheme now to avenge Dinah's rape that's concocted by her brothers. Watch this. This is the stuff of Hollywood. But Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father deceitfully because he had defiled their sister. In light of Jacob's silence and passivity, his sons assumed the responsibility for answering on behalf of the family. And Moses, the author, hints to the reader that the brothers' response is deceitful. Jacob has used deceit and treachery to get his way in life when he was his son's age, and the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Now it's their turn. And so watch as they use treachery against Hamor and Shechem. The brothers say in verse 14, we can't do this thing. What you're asking us to do is an impossibility, they said to him. Giving our sister to an uncircumcised man is a disgrace to us. We will agree with you only on this condition. If all your males are circumcised as we are, then we will give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves, live with you and become one people. But if you will not listen to us and be circumcised, then we will take our daughter and go. The brothers dismiss Hamor and Shechem's offers outright because Hamor, in effect, offers what God has already promised. They offer land and blessings to Jacob and his sons. Live with us, and you can acquire land, and you can trade, and you can get filthy rich, because we have assets that you want, and you have stuff that we want, and we can create this alliance and trade and barter, and this is going to be a win-win for everybody. Unfortunately, God has already promised them the land, and God has already promised them blessings. And so what Shechem and Hamor are offering Jacob and his sons, God has already promised. You guys be weary that the enemy is trying to dupe us and hoodwink us and bamboozle us by trying to get us to give in and to sign up for things that God has already said to give us. It was the original sin. Satan tempted our prodigal primordial parents in the Garden of Eden. He said, hey, if you eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And Adam and Eve were already like God. Do you guys see that? The enemy wants us to take and seize and reach out and grab things that God has already given us or wants to give us in due time. In the temptation in the wilderness in Matthew chapter 4, where Jesus is tempted by Satan, everything that Satan offers Jesus, God was already going to give him. Either he already had it or God was going to give it to him after he finished his life work. And Satan is trying to tempt Jesus to seize and to capture and to take prematurely what God was already going to give him. And so here Hamer and Shechem are doing the same thing. And that's just the enemy's same old plot, same old tired playbook all over again. And he's playing those same cards here to Jacob and these sons of his. The brothers will give their sister Dinah and their daughters in marriage and a marriage alliance and become one people on one condition, that all the males have to be circumcised like the Israelites, or the brothers will take Dinah and move on. To intermarry with the uncircumcised is disgraceful. It's contemptible. It's a shameful act. And so look here at the response with verses 18 through 20. The brothers have made a counter offer, and how will Hamer and Shechem respond to the counter offer that the brothers have said? The brothers have said, no, we're not interested in an alliance with you on your conditions. We'll do it on the condition of circumcision, and if you submit to circumcision, then we got a deal. Okay, so how do Hamer and Shechem respond to this? Their words in verse 18 seem good to Hamer and to his son Shechem. The young man did not delay. Shechem did not delay in doing this because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. Now, Shechem was the most important of all his father's family. It makes sense. The city is named after him. That tells us how significant and how prominent he is in his family and in the city. Verse 20 says this: so Hamer and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city and spoke to the men of their city. They accept, the father and son accept the brothers' proviso and urgently assemble the able-bodied men capable of bearing arms of the city at the city's gates, where civic and judicial hearings were held and business was transacted. Verse 18 says, the matter seemed good to them, both men for their own reasons. Shechem would gain a wife, and Hamer business interests. Hamer's bringing business and new opportunities to grow Shechem, the city of Shechem, and that would have made him look good because he's the chieftain and the local ruler. Hamer's looking at this like a mayor would. Hey, I'm bringing new business into the city. This is going to make me look good, and my son's going to get a wife. This is a win-win. We're all in. Don't miss the fact that Moses tells us that Shechem is moved expeditiously because he delighted in Dinah. He desired her. He took pleasure in her. He's favorably inclined to this young lady. Now, in verse 21 through 24, Hamor and Shechem deceitfully make their sales pitch to the men of the city, failing to disclose pertinent information regarding the proposed alliance. Watch this. As they speak to the men of the city, all of the able-bodied men are gathered at the city gates to hear this civic gathering, a community gathering, and all the men are there. And here's their pitch in verse 21. Hamor and Shechem say, "These men, the Israelites, are peaceful toward us." They said, "Let them live in our land and move about in it, for indeed the region is large enough for them. So let's take their daughters as our wives and give our daughters to them. But the men will agree to live with us and be one people only on this condition, if all our men are circumcised as they are." Verse 23, watch this. "Won't their livestock and their possessions and all their animals become ours? Only let's agree with them and they will live with us." Verse 24, all the men who had come to the city gates listened to Hamor and his son Shechem, and all those men were circumcised. The pitch is simply this: the Israelites are peaceful toward us. Shechem is large enough to absorb the Israelites into our region. We'll enter into a marriage alliance with them and become one people. But there's one condition: all of us have to be circumcised like they are. The Israelites' great wealth will become ours. Wait a second, the brothers never signed up to liquidate, to allow their wealth to become the possession of the Shechemites. That's a deceitful pitch. All the men assembled at the gate agreed with Hamor and Shechem to enter into this accord with the Israelites. And so what's interesting here is that Hamor and Shechem withhold critical information that might have gotten this alliance vetoed. They fail to mention the real motivation behind the alliance is that Shechem, the real motivation behind the alliance, and that's Shechem's dastardly deed against Dinah. They don't mention it. They fail to mention that they have offered the Israelites an opportunity to acquire land. They don't mention it. The sales pitch is this: the alliance is a win-win for us and a lose-lose for Jacob and the Israelites. Let's enrich ourselves at the expense of these unsuspecting Israelites. And all the men said, "Hey, let's sign up for that." All the Shechemites are circumcised. I love this statement by Victor Hamilton. He says, "Thus we have two cycles of duplicity going on simultaneously. Jacob's sons are deceiving Shechem and Hamor, who in turn are deceiving their own villagers. The deceivers are themselves being deceived." You guys get what's going on here? Fascinating story. Hollywood couldn't tell a story better than this. Now, the slaughter of the Hivites and the salvation of Dinah as the brothers execute their revenge. All of the men of the city of Shechem have been circumcised. Verse 25 says, "On the third day after their procedure, when they were still in pain, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and went into the unsuspecting city and killed every male. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with their swords and took Dinah from Shechem's house." The third day is when the Shechemites were in intense pain and likely feverish from the circumcision. Ancient texts say that around the second, third, and fourth days were the worst pain days after adult males are circumcised. And so because Jacob's sons are circumcised, they know the pain tolerance, and they know how long it takes. And so they seize the opportunity at the very right time when the men of the city are incapacitated and unable to muster any strength and to defend themselves, and they slaughter them, each one of them. Notice in verse 26, this is new news to us, in verse 26, that Simeon and Levi rescue Dinah from Shechem's house. Apparently, ever since Shechem had raped her, she has been held against her will and abducted in Shechem's home. So Shechem has not only defiled Dinah by stealing her virginity and sexually assaulting her, but he's also kidnapped her and abducted her. And the brothers go and rescue their daughter, their sister, from Shechem's house. Not only was Shechem, because he's dead in verse 26, not only was he a sexually violent man, but he was also a kidnapper. And the brothers said, not on our watch. Verse 27, Jacob's sons, his other sons, came to the slaughter and plundered the city because their sister had been defiled. They took their flocks and their herds and donkeys and whatever was in the city and in the field. They captured all their possessions, dependents, wives, children, plundered everything in the houses. Simeon and Levi's brothers come and plunder and pillage the city, taking people and possessions with them. Don't miss the irony. The Shechemites entered into this agreement because they wanted to plunder the Israelites. Didn't Hamor and Shechem say all of their stuff is going to be ours? And God has turned the tables. Now all of their stuff is now the Israelites. Don't miss the irony. The editorial note in the B part of verse 27 is insightful. Not just Simeon and Levi are outraged over what happened to Dinah, but her other full and half-brothers are enraged as well and participate in the plunderage of the city of Shechem. Brothers have teamed up and have gotten together to make a spectacle of the city of Shechem. Here's the last movement. Dinah's brothers' revenge is a reproach on Israel according to Jacob in the last two verses, verses 30 and 31. But just verse 30, the patriarch scolds his sons. Watch Jacob here. Look at what he says. He says, Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me, making me odious to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. We are few in number. If they unite against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed. Jacob finally says something and shows some emotions, but his outrage is selfish in nature. Jacob is worried about the consequences from his son's actions and how they might disadvantage him, making him an odor, a foul stench like rotting fish in the land of promise. And that the inhabitants of the land might band together to destroy the Israelites. The cat doesn't have Jacob's tongue anymore, and he's all worried about himself. He hadn't said anything about Dinah. Hadn't said anything about her integrity. Hadn't said anything about standing up for her reputation. It's all about me and how this is going to reflect on me. It's fascinating because God brought Jacob to the promised land, and Jacob is seeing God's angels camped out with him. Why is he worried about the inhabitants of the land when he's got the angels of God camping out with him? I don't understand. 2 plus 2 isn't adding up to be 4. I told you Jacob wasn't all transformed. Remember, we've been cheering him on like, man, Jacob is now Israel and he's radically transformed. No, he's the same old Jacob. He's just got a new name. And his sons call him out in verse 31. Look at this as they rebut Jacob's reprimand, asserting that the scandal resulting from their revenge is justified. These brothers push back. They grown men now. And Jacob is a senior citizen, and little Simba's pushing back against Mufasa. They answered in verse 31, should Shechem treat our sister like a prostitute? The brothers, particularly Simeon and Levi, push back against Dad's reprimand. They're standing on principle. They said, should Shechem have gotten away with treating our sister, not your daughter, our sister, because you don't care about her, remember? So should we have let him get away with treating our sister like a prostitute? Jacob's priorities are on preserving the family, and the brothers' priorities are on preserving Dinah's reputation and honor. Let me give you this quote by Gordon Wenham. I thought this was insightful. He says this, and this was good. He says, indeed, their remark, should he treat our sister like a prostitute, could be referring not just to Shechem's treatment of Dinah, but also Jacob's. It may have been said in private afterwards to do nothing about rape and then be willing to accept gifts after the event is to act like a pimp. These two readings of the brothers' reply are not mutually exclusive. It may well be that this last word is intended to be read as a condemnation of both Shechem and Jacob. I wonder if these brothers are calling their dad a pimp. You want to pimp our sister, your daughter? You want to accept the gifts and the alliance from these people who defiled our daughter? No, we not gonna do that. Nobody's pimping our sister. They don't even. Dinah's no longer Jacob's daughter. This is our sister, and we gonna stand up for our sister. Let me give you a short aside on reciprocal justice here. Just a quick paragraph, some of my thoughts here, because scholars and theologians have pushed back against the brothers, their act of justice here. And so let me just speak into this, and then we'll look at some quorum deos. Did the brothers' act of vengeance cross the line? If the law of the talion, reciprocal justice, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, was the generally accepted principle in the Mediterranean world, then the question begs asking, did the brothers go too far? Reciprocal justice would require the rape of someone from Hamor or Shechem's family, or restitution to be paid to Jacob's family. The brothers slaughtered the entire city, none of whom had anything to do with Shechem's sexual assault against Dinah. Neither is there any clue from the narrative that they were even aware of what had happened. Again, is this overkill on the brothers' behalf? No pun intended on that overkill reference. So what say you? Did they go too far? Should they have just killed Hamor and Shechem and left the other Shechemites, let those men live? I have a thought about that, because I'm all for reciprocal and proportionate justice. That my time should fit the crime. I'm all for that. But I think there's something else behind their motivation to slaughter all of the men. And I want to see if you guys can come up with that, because I'm going to reveal that to you. Not today, but Tuesday night at 7 o'clock during Life Group. Because I think they had to kill all of the men, and I'll tell you why. But I want to hear you tell us why you think that is. Here are the quorum deos. One for our head, one for our heart, and two for our hands. Here's the one for our heart. Here's what I want you to meditate and reflect and contemplate on as you get ready for Life Group on Tuesday. I want you to notice the irony that the two most victimized persons in the narrative, Dinah and God, never utter a word. Did you guys pick up on that? Dinah was the human victim, and God is the divine victim because she's made in his image and his likeness, and any violence against her is violence against God. Did God say anything in this passage today? He did not. Did we hear a whimper or a word from Dinah? We did not. What is that about? I want you to tell me Tuesday night at Life Group. What do you think the silence from God and Dinah is really about? Number two, silence perpetuates the physical and sexual violence against women and girls. So let's speak up and let's stand up. That is an action item. That is a practical thing that we can do. Men have to stand up. Men have to speak up because our women are going to, because they've had enough. This has been happening. Violence against our women has been happening from the beginning of time, and they've been speaking up from the beginning of time. But now it's time for us to join them and speak up and stand up. Here's one for your head. Here's something to know about God and who he is and what he's like. Number three, God brings order out of chaos, working just as effectively through human vices as he does human virtues, ultimately to bring about his perfect plans and purposes. God takes this chaos, this confusion, this violence, this disrespect, this condemnation, this deceit by Dinah's brothers and by Haman and Shechem, and God uses it all for his purpose. What is that purpose? I'll tell you Tuesday night at Life Group. That's the second thing that I'm going to share with you. There's something fundamental to the covenant that we didn't talk about today that I want to talk about on Tuesday. Lastly, let us be advocates of reciprocal or proportionate justice under the larger umbrella of retributive justice. The justice levied by these brothers was not reciprocal, was not proportionate, and that's not the kind of justice we want in our land. We want to be the people that are advocating and allies for a criminal justice system that is proportionate, a criminal justice system that is reciprocal, that offers penalties that are in line with the offense. Not taking a bag of marijuana and putting somebody in prison for 10 years. That's disproportionate. And our system for so long has been unjust and unequitable in that way. God, we thank you for this story. God, this was a hard story to hear. That this young, beautiful girl who had been saving herself for marriage, who belonged to the patriarchal family, the only daughter of the 12, their family's pride and joy had been violated, vitiated, and defiled by this powerful, privileged, and perverse young man. And so, God, thank you that her brothers stood up. Thank you that Dinah's brothers said, "Not on our watch." Thank you that they defended their sister's honor. Thank you that they sent a clear message in the promised land that violence against our women won't be tolerated and won't be normalized and won't be sanitized, not in Israel. And so, God, may we be the type of people who have that same sort of integrity, that care enough to stand against violence both sexual and physical, against our women. May we be the fiercest allies and advocates of our women. May the Church of Jesus Christ pursue a world where violence against our women is a relic of our barbaric, savage, and inhumane past, and where our women can live free without the worry of physical and sexual violence perpetuated against them in a patriarchal world where men say nothing and do nothing, kind of like Jacob. So God, call us out. May we be the fiercest defenders and advocates of the most precious thing you created was our women and our girls. That's not my opinion. I think that's a fact. And so, God, may we defend them with every fiber of our being, in our systems and in our relationships, in professional contexts where women are still not paid dollar for dollar at the rate of their male counterparts. God, we need equity in our salary and in our wage system. So God, where men in this church and those that will hear this message, where they have power and influence, may they be advocates and allies for our women and our girls. So God, call us up and call us out. In Jesus' name. Amen.